Hi everybody, welcome back to episode 4 of Skin Identities. This will unfortunately be the final episode of our series on hidradenitis suppurativa, so this episode will be different than the others. In our past episodes, we have looked at what causes HS, what treatments there are, and how it impacts a person day to day. All these have been derived to the best of my abilities from studies and more from the analytical side. This episode, however, will look more towards the community. I'm going to first address any myths that I have come across from sites such as Reddit, Facebook, TikTok, or any other social media platforms that I come across. I will then delve into support group services or HS-specific items, such as hydraware, that can help people day to day, so I hope you guys will enjoy today's episode. So the first myth we have for today's podcast, and possibly the most common one, is HS is caused from poor hygiene or bad hygiene. This is typically due to the intense odor that is usually associated with HS due to pus that typically leaks out from the abscesses that form. They can rupture, spilling their contents, which are a combination of our keratin or bacteria into the surrounding area. The reality is that although having poor hygiene can exacerbate existing HS symptoms, it is never the reason people get HS. HS is a chronic inflammatory skin condition. It's an auto-inflammatory syndrome involving multiple factors like follicular occlusion, an abnormal microbiome, and an inflammation-triggered follicle rupture. This myth started from a lot of places really, however the main source seemed to come from a lot of quote-unquote skin influencers who went around parading that HS was caused largely by poor hygiene and could be fixed through certain cleansing routines. The ingredients used most of the time for these cleansing routines were not specific, and the ones mentioned were therapies such as apple cider vinegar, turmeric, and herbal teas. In a lot of these influencer videos, they were often marketed as all natural and self-caring, and they make claims that Staphylococcus aureus triggers flare-ups, and they recommended antibiotic ointments, but there aren't really any studies that support the presence of Staphylococcus aureus in hidradenitis suppurativa. Moving on to the second myth, this is basically that HS is contagious. Again, due to how HS manifests, many people relate it to skin conditions that have similar presentations such as chickenpox, which are very contagious. And it's understandable why many people believe that HS spreads from skin-to-skin contact. HS, however, although the cause of it is still unknown, we do know with certainty that it does not spread with human contact. The only possible way it could be, I guess, contagious, quote-unquote, is its possible genetic aspect. But that's sort of, being far-fetched. And as we know, that basically those with a family history are 30 to 40% more likely to have HS if at least one member of the family is affected. So, do what you will with that. Now, while on the note of HS not being contagious, this same concept applies to our third myth that HS is either a sexually transmitted disease or sexually transmitted infection, so our STDs and STIs. The origin is this that you can commonly find HS in the groin area of many HS sufferers, because as we know, areas of tension or excessive rubbing are known to exacerbate HS. The physical manifestations of HS are also very similar to what genital herpes seen in the herpes simplex virus, as both conditions are painful boils, abscesses, or blisters, which are most likely also fueling the myth that HS is an STD or STI. Another myth is that only females can have HS. Now, although females have a higher predominance compared to males with approximately a 3-to-1 female to male ratio in Europe and North America, it's interesting to note that in Asian populations, males actually have a higher predominance with a 1-to-2 female to male ratio. So yes, men can also get HS. It is also interesting to note that there is a difference when it comes to HS between men and women. Firstly, the distribution of the lesions seem to differ from gender, with females having a greater distribution on the breast and inguinal regions, so areas more towards the front of the body, whereas males, the lesions seem to have lesions on the gluteal, so the butt, perianal, and nape, so more towards the back of the body, interestingly enough. Now for a more debatable myth. this is that HS is rare. Now yes, this skin condition is rare when you look at the prevalence of this skin condition, particularly in Australia, with about 0.67% of the population to be diagnosed with HS, which is quite a small amount of individuals. This does not take into account the amount of misdiagnosed and undiagnosed cases of HS, however. It has been noted that there seems to be an average 7.2 year difference between the manifestation of any type of HS symptoms and finally diagnosing HS. Many studies seem to miss the possibly large pool of undiagnosed cases of HS. As another point is that different stages of HS, such as our early stages 1 and 2, are more easily diagnosed, impacting around 24 to 68%, and 28 to 54% respectively of HS sufferers, compared to early stage 3, which is less common, with a range of 2 to 29% of patients being diagnosed with this. So the main sort of take from this is, although it's reported that a small amount of the population has HS, many variables need to be considered, especially the high rates of misdiagnosed cases of HS and the time it takes for an individual to be diagnosed. So yes, it's rare, but we don't really know the true extent of how many people have HS because it's one of the most misdiagnosed and undiagnosed skin conditions out there. Now, regardless of all the myths and rumors circulating online about HS, you can get help with HS and you are not alone. So let's move on from these myths and move towards our basically support groups and support services, and what help out there is for those with HS and those who want to know if they do have HS. These will be, to the best of my abilities, localized to Australia. However, there are not many organizations or support groups in Australia, so bear that in mind. So the first organization we have is aptly named Hidradenitis Suppurativa Australia, which I know very creatively named. They are a registered charity that is who also do not-for-profit commissions. Their main mission, according to the website, is to spread awareness of HS to as many people as possible. They do this through their signature purple illuminations called Illuminate for HS. So Illuminate, the number 4, and HS for Hidradenitis Suppurativa. They do this basically by finding Australian landmarks, so they can light them up with purple lighting to help people notice and start the conversation of HS, what HS is, and hope they can spread the word to get change to occur. They also have regular meetings with policymakers and politicians to advocate for changes and bring awareness of HS, while educating the community. They also do provide some services, although limited, such as a support group that runs on the first Friday of every month at 5 PM AEST, so basically Australian. And their website also has links to dermatologists who specializes in HS, so you can connect with HS experts to help diagnose or confirm your HS suspicions if you're not really sure where to start. Next, we have the HS Foundation. So the interesting thing about this organization is that it was founded by 2 patients afflicted with HS and 2 dermatologists devoted to studying HS, and the mission is to improve the lives of those afflicted with HS, as their vision is to live in a world where no one suffers from HS. They aim to educate patients and the professionals about the latest treatments and discoveries about HS, so breakthroughs on the cause, diagnosis, control, and cure of HS, which they share through educational resources on their website. So they have videos, pamphlets, cards, and these are very useful for anyone who wants to learn more about HS. It's also important to note that they help fund many of the actual relevant researches that is happening towards HS development, and welcome many people to volunteer for their clinical trials. This organization, however, is located in the US, so for those who are located in Australia, it's a bit hard, to access their support. But those in the US, they have branches all over America, so it's pretty easy to reach. Moving on. So other than the organizations, we also have many online communities out there on our sites like Reddit and Facebook. So the most notable ones being on Reddit, called r/hidradenitis. And this is a no judgment zone where people can seek help from others to cope with this illness, or simply just a place to rant about their skin condition. Many people here simply ask how others manage their HS and flare-ups, products they have found useful for them, and like the protocols that they use, and ways they manage their HS, and how, you know, has this worked for them, this doesn't work for them, you know, just a lot of suggestions out there. Many people also use it as basically a way to log their treatment journey with HS. And there's a lot of success stories, there's also a lot of unsuccessful stories, but you know, it's a lot to learn from that, to see like basically how they live with HS. And if you're on Facebook instead, there is a group called Hidradenitis Suppurativa Support Group Australia, and it does something very similar, simply on a different platform. However, it is good to note that a simple Google search of support groups online can direct you to some communities that are more than welcoming and informative, as others are struggling with the same skin condition and just want someone similar to talk about. Now this is going a bit off script here, but it just came to mind. There's something called also hydrowear. Now what hydrowear is it's basically a combination of clothing and dressings basically combined into one. And this is clothing specific for hidradenitis suppurativa. Now, it's basically used for people with flares in the armpit, on your buttocks and groin, so areas where you have a lot of chafing and rubbing. And it's very good for managing HS flare-ups. So basically, picture like, let's say your underwear or your shirt, and just picture that the groin area or the armpit area has these small holes cut into them. So what that does is it gives you a discreet breathable underlayer of your clothing, so that, you know, it's not constricted, it's not rubbing as much, and it also, you know, doesn't allow a breeding ground for bacteria to occur. And then they also provide like a patented dressing. So these are, I think from what I've seen, hydrocolloid dressings, or these cotton dressings, and they basically can be slipped into the groin area or your armpit area, the areas with deflection, and it will stick to the piece of clothing. So if you have if your HS specifically has a lot of draining, this helps basically suck up all that leakage day to day. And yeah, so it attaches to the skin with tape. It holds the dressing in place, and there's a less painful dressing change, no leakage, and there's a lot more freedom for you to move from day to day. Because normally, you know, any normal dressing, so bandaging, maybe your day-to-day clothes that you want to wear, those usually are very awkward and restrictive for your movement, and it can actually cause a lot of skin damage, as we talked about, and I think this was episode 2. And it's also really time-consuming to, anytime you go out, if you have a lot of leakage, bandage your arm, bandage your groin, and then put the clothes on, then come home after a long day, or maybe midday you have to change the dressing. And then, you know, you're stuck out with your friends, you're like, sorry, I have to go to the bathroom, gotta change the dressings, gotta bring the dressings in a bag with you. And more often than not, the dressings fail or they fall easily. So this is this is basically an easy, I wouldn't say easy, but a better method compared to bandaging, and just very nice for a lot of people. Again, it's called hydrowear, and of course I'll link all these communities, websites, and items in the description if you guys are interested. Yep, so that basically leads us to the end of this episode. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask any questions in the comments. I will be posting basically short form videos on various platforms, so on X or Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Instagram as well, and it's all the same name, Skin Identities. Yeah, that's all I can say. Thank you guys for joining me. Remember to always do your own research. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. I've tried to research it as best as I can, but sometimes I miss things, or sometimes I get things wrong. So feel free to correct me. And thank you so much. Goodbye, guys.